Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you out to the DC Cybersecurity Professionals Meetup Group. I am Tyrone E. Wilson, the CEO of Cover6 Solutions. We are an information security services and training company. We've had these meetups since January of 2012 with over 8,000 members. We've had a lot of great speakers, and we're just trying to continue the best way we can, considering COVID. Normally we meet in person because it is a meetup, but doing this virtually is or has been a really good alternative. And the goal is to have 52 sessions this year. So yes, we will have a meetup every week in this time slot. And I have challenged myself to speak 2 times a month, and then we'll have guest speakers the other weeks of the month. A little bit about me. I have been in cybersecurity and in the military my entire adult life, 25 years. I enjoy, the platform that we've been able to create. I take it very, very seriously. I realize that, people can make life decisions based off of what I'm saying or the information that I put out. So, I take pride in my ability to provide some really great mentorship. And even if it means I have to go through those certification tracks, every 5 to 6 years or so, that's something I'm willing to do. So last November, I started going down that road, and I took the Network Plus, Security Plus, EJPT, and the CEH Practical because I wanted to see what those questions and exams were like in case anyone wants to ask me. I did set new goals for 2021, and that is to get the CYSA, CISP, OSCP, CCISO, and PMP this year. And then next year, I'll start working on SAN certs. It's just my goals. So hopefully you all have goals too. If you're following me on Twitter or any of the social media platforms, I can be found at Ty Wilson 21. My DMs are always open. Feel free to reach out to me at any time. I will do the best I can to answer all of your questions. So our company is a military tribute to our service, and it's also a nod to my love for IPv6. I feel like eventually people will catch on, they'll stop running from it, and we'll see how it goes. I have a teach you, show you, involve you style. So I'll talk about it, I'll show you what it looks like, and then I will challenge you to recreate what I did, and then take it a step further so you can learn some additional content on your own. I have done this talk before at HAFCON, previous meetups. I do it all the time for my trainings. So we do have a SOC analyst prep course that we do on the weekends, and we have an 8-week attack and defend course where I combined the SOC analyst prep material and the pentester prep material. So that will actually prepare you for the CYSA exam, EJPT, and the CEH practical. I'll put all those notes inside that class. Understand that, we're all in this together. So be supportive of each other. You can get yourself in trouble, if you use what you learned in a malicious manner. Only use these tools on the network that you have, direct control over, right? Don't do this. Don't do any of this at work. You can really, really break things. As part of your journey, get comfortable being uncomfortable. It's going to be challenging. There's going to be a lot that you will need to learn and you will need to know just to be halfway decent, but it's okay. All of it will be worth it in the end. I like to use the words of Muhammad Ali, where he says during his training, he says, "Suffer now and live like a champion later." And if you follow me on Twitter, you'll see that I was kind of amped this morning. And basically, a lot of my tweets are really to amp me up and keep me motivated and going. But my tweet this morning was, if you want it, go get it. Right? There's nothing stopping you. I'll always be there to help you. And I believe I tweeted that when I was halfway through my 7-mile walk. So I do 5 miles. So I say get to 5 every single morning. And I only take Sundays off. All right, so we're going to talk about IPv6 today, and I want to begin with some words from Microsoft. So it's not coming from me. It's directly on the Microsoft page. On the URL that you registered for this virtual session, cover6solutions.com/IPv6. The slides are on that page. So you can follow along and you can use these hyperlinks if you want from those slides. Also, this video will be posted to that same page, and that will be our main IPv6 page. So as we create additional IPv6 content, we'll add it to that page. So again, cover6solutions.com/IPv6. So Microsoft's guidance is not to disable IPv6 or its components, right? So they will not, they will not support you if you try to disable IPv6. So that's the first thing. IPv6 is over 25 years old. You can see that there's also over 30% of the internet that uses IPv6 according to Google. So the users that access Google over IPv6 are over 30% now. So 1 in every 3 people are using it. It's time to get on board. No more running. I'm here for you. I have been preaching it since I was a part of a team that created their own IPv6 firewall around 2010, 2011-ish. And I remember us celebrating in the office when we reached 1% of the internet on this chart. So you can see how fast it's grown. And I do not believe it's going to stop anytime soon. Right, so there are we have to understand what it is first, right? So think of every road, highway, street you've ever been on, and just imagine that there's another one directly underneath it. And not only that, that there's enough room for 4 times the amount of vehicles, right? So imagine what we have now with the infrastructure. Imagine 4 times that. And there's a reason for all of that. So with IPv4 and IPv6, it is a protocol or a language that your devices that are on the network use to communicate with each other. And IPv6 is not backward compatible with IPv4. They, just like a person, it does not communicate with each other without some type of translation mechanism or tunneling mechanism. It's like telling you that you are bilingual, in case you weren't bilingual already. Not only are you bilingual, you have been bilingual for the last 25 years or more. It's been set in your operating systems, in the Windows operating systems since Windows Vista. It's like having a door on your home that you see on occasion, but you just never open it. But it is a door that leads people into your home, right? If you have any type of operating system, there's a 90% chance you have an IPv6 address there. You'll see that the IPv4 address space is 2 to the 32, and IPv6, which is 4 times that, is 2 to the 128, or 340 decillion possible IP addresses. Everyone in the world can have trillions of IPv6 addresses. There's really no need to NAT anymore. NAT breaks end-to-end encryption. So IPv6, you'll hear IPv6 enthusiasts complain about NAT a little bit. It is a small community. I did share it, but on my Twitter account, I do have a list called IPv6 Tweeps. So if you want to start following those people, you can. It's just a small group of folks that I know. At any point, if you all have any questions, feel free to ask those questions. I will weave those questions into the presentation, but I typically will not call you out by name, so feel free. There are a number of tools that you can use to get started with, and a lot of these, with the exception of probably NetSH and Scapy and RAGuard, is what you'll see today. So I'm going to demo a lot of these tools so you can actually see what that looks like and what that feels like. The first is with ipconfig or ifconfig. So right now from your terminal, you can type in ipconfig or ifconfig if you have a Linux machine or a Mac, and you can see what your IPv6 settings are. Chances are you will have a IPv4 address, which you may or should be familiar with looking at. And then underneath that IPv4 address, you'll have an IPv6 address or two IPv6 addresses. The first address starts with the prefix FE80, and that is your link local IPv6 address. And if you notice that there's letters inside of the IP address, and the letters going, and it has hex. So not only can you use 0 through 9, you can also use A through F. And that's what allows the IPv6 address to be so long. It's what gives us over 300 decillion different options. You'll notice that a lot of the tools that we talk about will have an IPv4 version and an IPv6 version, because remember, it's two separate protocols. So you can ping an IPv6 address. I believe in Windows, it doesn't matter. Well, Linux, it doesn't matter. I keep forgetting which ones. I keep going back and forth in the command line. But ping and ping6, you can start pinging IP addresses over IPv6, or it's the equivalent to speaking your second language. In Kali, or I believe just about any terminal, you can use the host command. The host command is used to identify an IPv6 address on a website. If you're familiar with the DNS infrastructure, you know that an A record is the IPv4 address. DNS, being the backbone of the internet, is the equivalent to having contacts on your phone. And an A record is the equivalent to someone's, I guess you could say it's their mobile number. And a quad A record, since not many people have them now, and they should, is like their home phone number. A DNS helps us remember which IPv4 addresses point to which domains and vice versa. So you can do something like a host www.cisco.com, host www.facebook.com, host www.Cover6 Solutions.com. And what you'll see is the IP address for the A record and an IPv6 address for the quad A record. Then there is a web browser. Once you identify what the IP address for the quad A record is, in brackets, remember to put in IPv6 on the internet, you need to put the IPv6 address in brackets. And if you're using IPv6, it will work for you. There is a way to check. We may need to add a sub-bullet. On your web browser, you can check by going to whatismyip.com, and it will tell you what your external IPv6 address is. Over the internet, IPv6 is preferred, and there's a really funny RFC called Happy Eyeballs. So IPv6 is preferred. When you type in a domain name, it's going to look for the quad A record first. And if it doesn't exist, then it will present to you the A record. So just keep that in mind. There are IPv6 capabilities built into the normal tools that we use every day, like IMAP. So the same way you can use IMAP to perform network mapping over IPv4 using the IMAP-6 command, you can also run IMAP over IPv6. So if you have IMAP installed, you can just do an IMAP-6 localhost to be safe, and that's essentially you scanning the top 1,000 most popular ports on your host machine. Then there's protocol analyzers like Wireshark and TCP-dump. In Wireshark, if you're going to use a Wireshark capture filter, then you just use IP6 and it will only capture IPv6 traffic. Or if you're running a full capture in Wireshark and you want a display of only the IPv6 traffic, then you will type in IPv6 in your display filter. And I'm going to show you a lot of that over in the demo after this. Then there's some metash commands, sorry, that you can use to make different queries and configurations of your IPv6 interfaces. And then there's a tool called Scapy, which will help you create custom IPv6 packets in case you want to test tools. Be very, very careful with the Scapy tool. You can easily break things there. Any questions so far? I just want to make sure I address everything. And let me grab some water really quick before we start talking about the ATK6 suite of tools. Oh, yeah, so thanks, Daryl. Just an update on the hexadecimal. So there's 0 through 9 and then A through F. But A is 10, B is 11, C is 12, D is 13, E 14, F is 15. Thank you for that. So we're gonna see some tools that are in Kali Linux. It used to be called the THC or the Hacker's Choice Toolkit. It has since been renamed to ATK6. We're just gonna focus on about 5 of them. The first is Alive 6. Then there's the Detect New IP6, the Flood Advertise 6, the Flood Router 6, and the Flood Solicitate 6. And those tools really help you get an understanding of how IPv6 works. Now, we mentioned tools like IMAP. We mentioned the fact that there's trillions of available IP spaces, right? And normally in an nmap scan, you can scan a /24, /20, /16. You can scan the entire internet if you want. And it's only 4 billion or so IP addresses. You can't scan like that in IPv6 because with the amount of options, the scan will not finish in your lifetime. So IPv6 has created multicast groups. And as you join the network, you will automatically get put into some of these groups. Now, what you can do is ping the group instead of trying to scan a network range or a /24. And we'll see some of the groups later on, but the Live6 tool will ping the link local all nodes group. Additionally, IPv6 is kind of a noisy protocol, and it needs to be that way because there's so many available devices on the network. The way that this happens is because the protocol has IPv6 types like neighbor advertisements and neighbor solicitations, where these devices are constantly trying to identify who their neighbors are. And it's what allows you to have the fastest route from device to device. So if you move from location to location, these neighbor advertisements and solicitations will update the neighbor tables and provide you the fastest route. So just like you have neighbor advertisements and neighbor solicitations, you also have router advertisements and router solicitations, basically asking, who's my router? Like, I need an IP address. And then a device responding saying, I'm your router, here's your IP configuration information, like DHCP v6. In IPv6, any host can serve as a DHCP v6 server and issue router advertisements. And if you don't have the proper security in place, such as a tool like RAGuard, then your device is going to accept that information. You'll see later on when we run this this flood router tool that your device will accept all of these new IPv6 addresses. On IPv4, in order to get a new IPv4 address, you would need to create another interface or another sub-interface. That's not the case in IPv6. In IPv6, you can have hundreds of IPv6 addresses in one interface, and we're going to see that. Moving on to talk about some of the ICMPv6 types. You have Wireshark, and we're going to get to that. You can see the echo requests and replies, or the pings, or the replies over IPv6, router solicitations, type 133, neighbor solicitations, neighbor advertisement. So, if you want to start identifying ICMPv6 types, in addition to just IPv6 traffic, this is a really good place to start. Additionally, some of the multicast addresses, so you can ping FF02::1, right? That is everyone on your local, or everyone on the local segment. FF02::2, to ping addresses, routers, and there's a reason why the addresses look that way. It's really FF020:0:0:0:0, but we won't talk about proper addressing schemes just yet, right? Maybe in a future presentation. All right, so now that we have that, right, like I mentioned, teach you, show you, involve you. There's a little bit of extra practice and challenges, right? So I'm challenging you to learn about the IPv6 header format, and I'm also challenging you to learn about IPv6 extension headers, to include options, hop-by-hop headers, routing headers, destination options headers. Once you get an understanding of these different headers, hopefully, like me, it'll start to open up your brain a little bit more, and you'll think about the possibilities that are there. Question, can I explain a bit more about IPv6 hosts on the network and provide, I'm not sure what RTR ads mean. Oh, router advertisements. Can you explain a bit more about IPv6 hosts on the network and router advertisements? Basically, the router advertisement is like your DHCP. So when you jump on the network, you're broadcasting who you are, and you're saying, hey, I need an IP address. And then your DHCP server will be like, hey, here's your IP address, here's your DNS, primary DNS, whatever you put in there, here's your scope, right? So it's the same, but on the IPv6 side. Some of my favorite people on Twitter, just throwing this out there. JD, Jeremy Duncan, Ed, Fernando, Sylvia Hagen. Definitely go and find them, look them up. They have a really good, especially Ed and Tom, and I believe it's Jeff too, the third person. They have a really good podcast called IPv6 Buzz. They have a really recent one with Vint-Cerf, and they talk about like the beginnings of IPv4 and IPv6. These individuals were in the room when IPv6 was thought of. So there is one on the IPv6 Buzz channel that I would recommend you start, and that is the one with Vint-Cerf, aka the father of the internet. And I guarantee you, in the first 10 to 15 minutes of that podcast, you will learn a lot. And then there's some additional RFCs. I know that a lot of these RFCs have updates to them, but some of these older RFC numbers are by design, because I want you to read the older ones and then see what the updates are. So once you pull up the RFC, up at the top, it'll say obsoleted by, and then it'll give you another RFC number. Just take a look at that, and you'll see the newest RFC. If you're not running IPv6 at home, there are a number of organizations that will create free IPv6 tunnels for you. The one that I have used is called Hurricane Electric, and you'll see the second to bottom, the second URL from the bottom is a list of IPv6 tunnel brokers. So really, it's just a couple of lines of code at the command line, and it will allow you to run IPv6 at home. And then some books to start. Sylvia Hagen. I didn't get a chance to put my put a picture in, but that was one of the first times I fanboyed at an IPv6 conference. I had, so I worked with Jeremy Duncan, and Jeremy was with me at our booth, and Sylvia Hagen was there. And I have a picture of me, Jeremy, and Sylvia Hagen together. Yeah, so that was one of my IPv6 fanboy moments. So yeah, Ed, great guy, and Scott and Eric. So you can read these books in that order. Start with the essentials, then IPv6 for Windows administrators, and then IPv6 security. All right, so I do have some closing remarks, but I'm not going to go there first. I'm going to show you a couple of demos, and then we will have some fun. So I'm going to get these virtual machines up and running, and right now is when, you know, I will take any questions that you may have. And again, you will learn some tools that will get you in trouble. Please, please, please do not run these tools on a network that you do not have authorization to do so. All right, so I think it's just smart to just show my second screen instead of trying to separate everything. So I have a Kali Linux machine, a Windows 10 machine from Microsoft Edge. Microsoft will provide you a free Windows 10 machine to use for what, 90 days. So you can use that. I have a Metasploitable 2 machine, and then I have a custom Linux machine that we use for our CTF, that we use for a CTF back from B-Sides Nova, maybe 3 or 4 years ago. All right, so first things first is we'll log into Kali Linux, and we'll do an ifconfig so you can see what we're presented as IP space. For my own security, I am not in bridged mode. I have all of my machines NATed, but they are all on the same NATed network. All right, so when I go to my command line and I type in ifconfig, I'll put this up so you can see it. Let me clear this out. You'll see that I'm presented with my NATed IPv4 address and subnet. I have a public IPv6 address, and then I have a linked local IPv6 address that starts with the prefix FE80, and that's the one I'm going to focus on right now. IPv6 also has a technology called EUI64, and essentially what that does is it puts a colon, an FF, colon FE in the middle of your MAC address. So you'll see that this is my MAC address, and it lines up with my link local IPv6 address. And what that is a way to confirm that the traffic came from you because your MAC address is in the link local IPv6 address. Now let's talk about the tools. You can do a host of www.facebook.com. And you'll see that Facebook has the 69.171 IP address for their A record, and then they have this 2A003 address as their quad A record. We mentioned that there is hex available, and you can see that they actually put Facebook inside of their IPv6 address. That is, you'll see that a lot. You'll see things like dead beef, blah, blah, blah. So I have copied that IPv6 address. I'm going to pull up my browser so you can see what that looks like in a browser. Remember, on a browser, you want to put the IPv6 address in brackets. Close that bracket, go, and it brings up the Facebook page. There is an if you want to test your IPv6 connectivity, you can go to IPv6.cybernode.com. That is an IPv6 only website, and it is a way to truly confirm that you are running IPv6. So IPv6.cybernode.com. I will send that to everyone in the group. Next up is the ping command. So you can ping, I believe it's ping, I'm definitely gonna probably get this wrong, ping6google.com, and you'll see that it responds with Google's IPv6 address. So we did the ping, we did the host. Now we can do an IMAP -6, but we'll do it over, we'll do a site that we're authorized to scan, like scanme.mmap.org. I'm not going to make it a IMAP class, but this is normally what I do. Then that should work, but only show me the ports that are open, and we won't scan 1,000 ports. We'll just say -- top ports 10. And you'll see that it works over IPv6. You're getting responses from the scanme.org website over IPv6. And you can try to confirm that by doing a host scanme.mmap.org. You'll see that those IP addresses, the IPv6 addresses, match up. We won't get into the NetSH. We won't get into the SCAPE. But what we can do is talk Wireshark a little bit, so you can see what that looks like over IPv6. Forgive me, my instance of Kali Linux is in dark mode. But like I said, in the capture filter, you can just put IP6 and get that started, and it will start collecting only your IPv6 traffic. All right, so you see that there's a bunch of IPv6 traffic in here. You see neighbor solicitations already. You see neighbor advertisements already. And what we'll do is we'll just grab one of those and we will come down here, click on this neighbor advertisement, and we will drag it into our display filter. So now we're only seeing neighbor advertisements, and you're seeing our IPv6 type 136, which we talked about already. And now that we're in Wireshark, you can start saving these. Hey, neighbor advertisements, hit OK. Also, down the bottom right, you may even want to create an entirely new profile that's just for IPv6 activity. So we'll save this again as neighbor advertisement. Maybe change this to 135, right? And that is your neighbor solicitations. And we'll save this as neighbor solicitations. So you get where I'm going with that. So whenever you're in your environment and you want to find all of the neighbor advertisements, you can, or the neighbor solicitations. Now create the same thing for router advertisements and router solicitations and anything else you want to identify over Wireshark. Let's see what I want to do. Let's open another window, and what we'll do is we will ping the all nodes group. So we'll ping ff02::1, and you'll see all of my devices that are on the network are being identified by their IPv6 address or their linked local IPv6 address, right? And that is the equivalent to scanning every host in my local segment, and that's everything between me and the first router. So if we're getting these IPv6 addresses, guess what else we can do with them? We can copy this, and now we can go back to the nmap-6, and we can start scanning these IPs over nmap. And if you have no idea what a scan looks like in Wireshark, then guess what? I'm going to get away with it. So this is the scan information. You see what all of the resets, all of the sends for all of these different ports. And then also up here at the beginning, you see all of the pings that I put out to the group. So here's an echo request, and here's an echo reply. So the echo request, remember, it's type 128, and the reply is type 129. Having fun yet? All right, let's keep going. So you saw how when I ping the all nodes group by doing a ping ff02::1, that this is what it looks like. And you know that normally your ping will ping over and over and over and over again until you tell it to stop. Or you can do something like a ping-c for a count. Maybe you only want to ping twice. Oh. :1, ping-c2, right? So now it's only pinged twice. So now that we talked about the ping, the host command, put it in your browser, we're going to skip the NetSH and escape, but we did talk Wireshark. Now what we can do is move on to our ATK6 tools. There are dozens of them, but we're only going to focus on a few. In Kali Linux, if you do a locate ATK6, then it will show you where the tools are in your bin. You could take a look there, and also I believe on the slides there's a link that takes you to the page that Offensive Security has developed that explains what all of these tools do. But a lot of these tools, if you just type in the name of the tool, it will provide you an explanation of what the tool does. Right, so the very first one we're going to do is very similar to the pinging the all nodes group. If you're using these tools, you'll need to also use the interface that has the IPv6 address. So I'm going to do an ATK6-alive6-L-ETH0. And very quickly, I can see that I have 3 hosts that are up and responding to ICMPv6 echo requests. And these machines are replying, which be my Windows 10 machine, my Metasploitable machine, and then my Linux machine. Right, so now we have the Alive6 tool, my second favorite tool, and I like to use this one when and what I'll do for this is I'll actually show the entire screen and try to get I'll just pull my Metasploitable 2 machine off to the side so you can see it. Right, MSF admin, I'll jack that up, sorry, MSF admin, trying to type too fast, MSF admin, hit config, right, so now you can see my IPv4 address and my linked local IPv6 address, which ends in 21.9F right here. What I would like to do is I like to come in early in the mornings when I'm on an assessment, and I like to run the ATK6-detect new IP6 tool. And what this does is it looks for, keep forgetting this one wrong, either router advertisements or router solicitations. So it detects new tools on new devices that are joining the network. So when they put out their router solicitation, I believe it's detecting, then it will get the IPv6 addresses of that machine. And I hope I got that right with the router solicitation. I keep getting them mixed up sometimes, especially with this tool. So I'll run this tool. And then what I like to do is I like to reboot my virtual machine. So I'm going to reboot this machine. And the cool thing about this is that you'll be able to clearly see at what point in the boot process that your machine announces itself to the network. So sometimes before you're even logged in, right, you have already announced yourself to the environment. See, so it's picking up the 219F, and guess what I can do now? I could copy this, and do the nmap scan. I can start my nmap scan before a user even has a chance to log in and do a netstat or look at their logs or anything like that. Same for the Windows 10. So I'll start the Windows 10, and then I'll also restart the Linux machine. All right, looks like this. Yeah, so that's the Linux machine rebooting, and this is my Windows 10 machine rebooting, and I'll put them off to the side so you can see that as well. And I'll put this off to the side so you can see when these two machines, when their IPv6 addresses are detected. And this is the cool thing about having a lab, right? I just have a MacBook, 16 gigs, i7, but from 2014, 2015, and it's still running pretty well. I paid a lot for it at the time, but sometimes it is worth the investment. So you can see I'm picking up new addresses, and what I do on the assessments is just let this tool run. And then as everyone comes into work, I'm gonna get all of their addresses, especially, if I am on the same local segment. So that's what that looks like. All right, next up is, a couple of tools that can get us in trouble. I'll probably only run one of them. And it's only because I want you to see what it looks like. So I'm gonna do a MSF admin, I will do the ifconfig, so you can see how many IP addresses I have. Then I'll log in here. Better not give me any issues. Then I'll also log in to my Linux machine. Just have to find it. That machine better not give me any issues. If it does, I'll just shut it down. No problem. Let's shut that down. So while that's booting up, what I wanted to mention was the other tools like the neighbor solicitation. So there's a flood solicitate tool, and it floods the network with neighbor solicitations. And you could see that that can be important because if a device's neighbor tables are just flooded with random IPv6 addresses, it's going to be difficult to identify the best route for traffic. So there's a flood solicitate tool, there's a flood advertise, so you can flood the network with neighbor solicitations, you can flood the network with neighbor advertisements. You can do the same thing on the router side. But the last and final tool that I wanted you to see is from the command line. I just wanted to show you how your Windows devices handle router advertisements, especially without security. So I'm just going to bring this command prompt up, and I apologize if it's not in a position to view the text, but you'll still get the gist by here, by using it this way. So if I type in an ipconfig, let's cancel that. Dang it. All right, no problem. You can still see it fairly. So if I type in an ipconfig, right, you'll see the amount of IP addresses that I have. Let me try to make that the focus. Sorry, I didn't. I tried to adjust the text, but it just switched it back on me. So you'll see that typing in ipconfig, I have the public, you can't see it, prefixes FD15, and then there's an FE80, then there's an IPv4 address. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run a tool called ATK6 flood, and I need to be careful with this one. Hopefully we don't get cut off. So I'm going to run an ATK6 -flood. All right, looks like I need to slow down. What I will do is in the back, I will turn this Wireshark off. We don't need that right now. And then also what I will do is, nope, turn that off. All right. We're gonna leave that up. So what I will do is in my Kali Linux machine, I will type in an ATK6 flood _router 6 ETH0. And you need to be careful here. And I'll show you why in a second. So I'm gonna run it, and then I'm gonna immediately hit Control-C, because you'll see that right here it says it's starting to flood the network with router advertisements, and there is 1,000 packets for every dot that was put out. So I stopped it right away so as to not break anything. And hopefully you all can still hear me. Can someone confirm that you can still hear me? All right, I tried to, all right, thanks. Thanks there, Rob. For the shortcut keys. That's why shortcut keys are so important. All right, so now that I ran that, what I will do is, oh man, I'll come back to my Windows machine, type in ipconfig again, and you'll see that because I flooded the network with random router advertisements and DHCP-v6 information, this Windows machine accepted all of these IPv6 addresses. Now, these are random IP addresses, but just like you saw earlier, I can still grab one of these IPs and perform an nmap scan and gain information about this host. Now, this is just me randomly giving it an IP address. Imagine if I was able to script that info and I'm joining a network to which I already know what your IP address is. Imagine the possibilities. So when I started seeing this a decade ago, I felt like I needed to tell the whole world. And if you look at our meetup group, you'll see that the very first 5 to 6 presentations were all about IPv6. And I felt like I truly tried to tell the whole world. No one was listening, so I gave up and I let it go. But it's time, it's just time now, right? So, in closing, right, I want you all to like embrace this journey, the struggle, right? You're going to need to give up some things to be better, but it'll be worth it. You belong, right? You belong. You do. I'll say it again. You belong. You can be anything you want in this industry. I'll always be here to help. Ty Wilson 21 on all of the social media platforms. DMs are always open. You can even find me on LinkedIn if you like. And that concludes the presentation. I hope you all enjoyed it. It will be posted to YouTube, so definitely like and subscribe it. We also have a list of our old presentations on YouTube, so you can see all of the older virtual meetups.